the sea, far over the wild mighty flow. On the ocean and deep and sails upon high, it's just like a bird of the wind. And when the shadows of evening draw nigh, he'll stand to my window and sing. I've taken a trip in my airship, come and a sail on the storm. Come and a ride around Venus, come and a spin around Mars. So as why we're here, so as to see why we go.
Can you believe it? 62. I'm your chief engineer, Rob Davis, right alongside Captain Ron Fortier.
Hey, greetings, loyal airmen, and welcome. One of the things that Rob and I, were talking about earlier, my wife and I, every morning after our first cup of coffee, go for this like 1.5 mile walk. And she's like, so what's on your table for the rest of the day? And I said, well, Rob and I are recording the Airship 27 podcast, number 62. And immediately, that number struck me, and I started doing some math, thinking, well, we do one a month. And it comes back to four years. We've done this over 4 years, buddy.
Man.
Where the hell is
put up with this for 4 years?
Yeah, where the hell is time gone? All right. It's nuts. All right. I mean, I can remember when Brant first suggested it to us as far as doing it as just an audio podcast, which we did for, those first couple of years for sure.
Yep.
And then, one day looking at YouTube and realizing we could do the video version, we started doing this, on air as a video as well as that. And you know what? I do want to add the fact that in the last 6 months, our numbers keep going up on viewership, which is really great. We're really averaging at least close to 100 viewers an episode now.
That's not bad for a little podcast like ours. Not at all.
Again, and so, hey, allow us to shout out to all of you a really huge thank for that. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you, tuning us in and watching the show for whatever reason. Those of you who ask questions and et cetera, it makes it worthwhile for us to do this. Okay. And, particularly in this time period where we're dealing with COVID-19 and there aren't any conventions to go to. Okay. The socializing we're doing is technological over the air like this. So we kind of hope that we're going to give you a little taste of a mini video convention if we can. All right. And we do have the typical monthly bad joke segments. But before we get into that, we've got some really serious news. And I'm going to let Rob take over and start that.
We're going to start out on a sad note, but hopefully we'll move on from there. But we're saying farewell to an old friend. But before we get into this month's bad joke, we want to start with a somber note this episode. We recently lost one of Pulp fandom's most enthusiastic, lovable souls, Mark Halegua of New York. Mark was a lifelong Pulp enthusiast, devoted Yankees fan, and all-around fun guy who livened up any convention or gathering he was a part of. We first met Mark at our first ever Windy City Pulp and Paper show in Chicago, where he wasted no time in chiding Ron for being a Red Sox fan. Now remember, he's a Yankees fan. Red Sox, Yankees. The two of them would banter back and forth good-naturedly every time they met. Sometimes I got caught in the middle. And I'm not a fan of either one of them. But anyway, Mark also introduced us to the Spaghetti Warehouse, one of his favorite eateries at Pulp Fest when it was in Columbus. Mark also created and wrote, along with Andrew Salmon, a pulp hero called Red Badge, which appeared in our Mystery Men and Women Volume 2. Sadly, he passed away of heart complications, and we will miss him greatly.
Yep.
The day after we... Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I just want to say he was a presence. Mark was a presence. When the first time I met him, and then, we started Airship 27, and you joined me in Windy City, and then you got to meet him. And the guy was always laughing. The guy always had a smile on his face. I never ever remember him being sour or grumpy or whatever. He seemed to know everybody, all right, at the cons, all right. He had so many friends, all right. And you could hear him talking 2 aisles down. Okay, that was Mark. All right, you could hear Mark talking. And as Rob's already told you, all right, this bit with the Yankees and the Red Sox between us. I mean, literally, Rob and I would be setting up, right? And I'd hear it coming up from behind me, right? Damn, Red Sox suck. And I go, oh, Mark's here. Here we go again, right? And and it was always friendly band, as Rob said, because the truth is, both of us are really, and as Mark really was, he was a real Yankees fan, a baseball fan. All right, and so even amidst this friendly rivalry that we had together, all right, it was really weird because in the midst of it, we'd also throw in some really good baseball critiques, i.e., complimenting which team had picked up which pitcher or which outfield.
Right.
Applauding them for doing so, and which ones we thought were going to rise to the top of the heap. Because at the bottom line of it, it was, again, friendly banter and competition is all sports should be anyways, and that was the heart of it, okay? So
a team is better. The competition is what makes a team better. If you've got a good team against a good team, and these two are good teams, then that makes for good baseball.
Exactly. And that's what Mark recognized all the time.
Yes.
So again, like I said, he had been sick for a long while. We had missed him at shows, and his absence was notable, believe me. Okay. So there is some good news after this. Okay. We're not done with you yet, Mr. Hallegua. Go ahead and finish that second part, Rob.
Okay. Okay. The day after we learned of Mark's passing, we spoke with Andrew Salmon and then later writers Nancy Hansen and Lee Houston Jr. Apparently, over the past 10 years, Mark had corresponded with the three of them about the possibilities of doing more Red Badge stories and a new character he'd invented called Blue Light. After some wonderful back and forth emails, these three talented writers have decided sometime in the near future to look over those old notes from Mark and then, with all fingers crossed, actually write these new stories he dreamed of doing himself. They will be a fitting tribute to our dear friend, and we know Andrew, Nancy, and Lee will do him proud. As ever, we'll keep you posted.
Yep. So there you go. Andrew Salmon, when I heard of Mark's passing, I was one of the first, I think, people on Facebook that got the word, and I got it from Pulp enthusiast Chris Culp. And Chris wrote me, and then I checked, and I realized that, it was official. And so I started to share it. Andrew saw my posting. Andrew got a hold of me and told me that he and Mark had communicated about the possibilities of more Red Badge stories, okay, which I thought was great. I said, I really wish you'd pursue this. Well, the very next day, that's when Nancy Hansen and Lee Houston Jr. came to me with this out of the blue stuff about the blue light, and no pun intended. The idea being is the four of them had met on the Yahoo group Pulp Factory, okay, where all these pulp writers and artists came together. This thing's been around for like 10 years. We recently moved it to Facebook. It's now called the Pulp Factory Group. And from that, you'll recognize the fact that's how we do the Pulp Factory Awards every year, et cetera, et cetera. But Mark, Nancy, Andrew, and Lee had all become very good buddies on those boards, posting, and again, kidding each other. Nancy always made jokes about hiding her dark chocolates and nobody could get a hold of it, right? Et cetera, et cetera. And then they'd quib about their favorite mixed drinks and whatever. But they were always the first people to wish members a happy birthday or a holiday or whatever.
Yep.
And so they took the news as hard as Rob and I did, and suddenly wanted to do something about this. So after hearing from Nancy and Lee, shortly after Andrew, I've put the three of them together, and I batch mailed them and said, look, I'm going to leave this up to you. You're all talented writers, all right? You don't need any direction from me. In fact, whatever they come up with, I don't care if it's a group of short stories or even a novella, It doesn't matter. I know it'll be.
We'll fit it in there. We'll fit it in there.
Airship 27 will put it out. So there you go. Hey, Mark, if you're looking down from above, you didn't miss much this year. It's kind of ironic that no baseball. Okay, so I guess maybe you got bored and said it was time for heaven. So go and find some angel Red Sox fan out there until I can join you someday, hopefully. All right, and Rob, Mom used to tell me when I was a kid growing up. It's that old superstitious thing. Things happen in threes, right? Well, in this case, it seems to have been borne out because Mark wasn't the only person we lost. I'll let you finish this section.
Yeah, and 2 more losses. We are also saddened by the loss of 2 other wonderful people who played big roles in our pulp community. Artist Tom Gianni was the first one. Tom was a fantastic artist based in Chicago area, known for his pulp covers and comic work, having recently been involved with Prince Valiant. He was also a wonderful teacher, and we had the fun of attending one of his presentations at the Windy City Show. And secondly, lifelong pulp fan and historian Nick Carr, whom we met in the early days of Airship 27's entry into this amazing pulp community. Nick passed on April Fool's Day, and we can't help but wonder if he didn't get the last laugh after all. Our condolences to both their families and many, many friends and fans. There's a heck of an art team up in heaven right now, working on new pulp books.
Yeah, well, we didn't know Tom personally, but we would see him at conventions, like you said. Every now and then he'd do a presentation. He did a lot of work for a lot of the major companies, and he was actually an early teacher of one of our dear friends, Doug Klaba. Mm-hmm. And in his passing, really got to Doug in a big way. Tom was suffering from cancer. He'd been fighting it for several years, and that was it. That battle ended. As for Nick, as we know, Nick was up there in age. Yep. Nick had been around for a long time. I don't know exactly. I believe it was
92. I think it was
early 90s. And boy, what this guy didn't know about pulps and pulp history and writers, you could put in a thimble. Let me tell you. All right, it was talking with Nick was getting an education every time he stopped by our tables. Yep. What a great guy. So the pulp community's a little sadder now, but one of the fitting tribute that we can give them, I think, that you can give anyone in this world, is that the world today, the world we know, the world you and I share, our community, whatever, is a much better place for having had these 3 men in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best legacy any of us can leave.
Yeah. Pretty cool people, all 3 of them.
Yep. And they will be sorely missed. All right.
Okay. Now, let's lift up the mood a little bit. If we can stand it.
as best we can. All right, it's time for the first bad joke of the month. And just so you know, I took a page from your book, Rob. I actually found 2 jokes online, but one of them was weird because it was one of those things where you actually needed to see the words. If you can understand it, it's an odd kind of thing. But if you could see the word, then you get the gag. Well, I tried to repeat it to my joke meter, Valerie, and she thought it not that it stunk. It was simply a bad joke.
Just didn't work. Didn't work.
Not to repeat. Most people would just not get it.
Okay.
So I found the second one. She died laughing. She gave it her seal of approval, buddy. So I'm going to read it.
Thanks, Val.
All right. So here goes. Amy, a blonde city girl, marries a farmer. One morning on his way out to the fields, the farmer says to Amy, "The artificial insemination man is coming over to impregnate one of our cows today. Now, I drove a nail into the big 2x4 just above this cow's stall in the barn." Okay. You show him where the cow is when he gets here. He'll do the rest. So the farmer leaves. Sure enough, a little while later, there's a knock on the door, and it's the artificial insemination veterinarian. And Amy says, "Oh, well, come with me to the barn." And they walk out to the barn. They go to this long row of stalls with cows, and she sees the nails, and she goes, "There, that one right there." Well, the vet's very impressed, and he looks at it and he goes, "So how'd you know which cow it was?" Because he knows she's a new bride and whatever to the farm. And she said, "Oh, that was simple." She says, "By the nail over the stall." The vet looks at her and asks, "What's the nail for?" Amy smiles. "I guess it's to hang your pants on." And she turns around and walks off. I don't think Amy got the concept. I really don't think Amy got the concept at all.
Oh no! Oh, that was bad.
I guarantee you, though, half our loyal airmen are going to be spreading this all over the land. All right, the day after this episode posts. Rob and I scour the internet looking for these kind of jokes, and all too often, well, they say, "Oh, new jokes," but you see them, and hey, I mean, we've heard lots of them over the years. Okay, so it's always a joy when you can find something that's relatively new. I had never heard this thing before. And the page I found it online, it was right up there on the first page. And I said, "Oh, that's it. That's joke."
I had to look a little harder this time for mine, but usually what I find are there are lots of puns. A ton of puns, but those are too short. I want a story to tell.
Exactly. Right. To lead you up to, you don't see the left turn coming at the end, and that's the fun of a joke. That's how it misdirects.
Yes, that's why they're funny. Yes. Yeah. It's
okay.
Unexpectedness. So anyway,
and we get another 40 so minutes before we get to stink up the room again with Rob's. So hang in there, loyal airmen. All right.
All right.
We're going to talk about some releases and some other things along the way. So here we go. Released since our last show. And this is from Radio Archives. Now, Jezebel Johnston, Birth of a Buccaneer. As most of you loyal airmen already know, Radio Archives has been producing excellent audiobook versions of all our titles and maintaining a very steady pace of releasing a new one practically every week. All right. Well, several weeks ago, they released this massive 32 hours long CD set from the Jezebel Johnston Omnibus Edition, which we put out last year, called Birth of a Buccaneer, as written by our dear friend and the amazing Nancy Hansen. In this set, all the recordings of the first 4 books in the saga: Devil's Handmaid, Queen of Anarchy, Sea Witch, and Morningstar. All of them are read by Robert Scarlatta. So if you're into audiobooks and like action-packed pirate stories, head on over to www.radioarchives, that's one word, .com. Check out the Airship 27 page found under their audiobooks section and tell them that Ron and Rob sent you. All right. I'm still amazed that, they got this done. The biggest thing Radio Archives had done up until this point was the huge 40 hours long CD set for Legends of Pulp Fiction. And I believe they had 3 readers on that book. I have a copy that's set in my office. But 32 hours of reading. I mean, I know Nancy was surprised and delighted, all right, when she found out that they were going to go ahead with this, all right. So, and she's still plowing through with the Jezebel Johnston books.
Yeah.
We just released one recently, and she's working, I believe she's working on number 7?
It's 7.
It's 7. Yeah. We released 6.
Number 7. We just released 6.
Right.
So she's working on 7.
And hopefully, per our plans with her, and I Skyped with Nancy over a week ago. and was the first time that her and I hooked up like this. We had a really good time. We spoke for about an hour, and we're still following through with her idea of doing segments so that volumes 5, 6, 7, and 8 will now become the next omnibus edition when we get them out. Because if any of you are following the series, and we know you are by the sales, okay, this is basically the story of a young lady who at the age of 14 disguises herself as a boy and joins a pirate crew. And over these 6 adventures that have been released, she's gotten older, she's gotten more accomplished, she's learned to fight, to navigate, to do everything pirates did. The point obviously is, by the time we get to whatever massive, climax that Nancy has in her mind, and it is definitely Jezebel will be a pirate queen. She will have her own ship and maybe even her own fleet. So those are some of the things that her and I talked about a little bit. She didn't give away a whole lot, but, just as the editor in charge, I wanted her to know that, we're still behind this series 100%.
Right.
And we're going to ride it out to the end. We absolutely love it. We think it's great. And I have to tell all of you, I want to share this because from the first day Nancy brought the series to us, all right, and Rob and I were tickled pink, all right, because basically she had offered us to do a pirate series without any fantasy or magic. She said, I'm going to give you guys a traditional pirate story. Okay, I mean, if you think, harking back to the days of Tyrone Powers or Errol Flynn and all those movies they made back
Captain
in the
Blood.
Right, exactly, the Seahawk and whatever, all right?
Yep.
And we realized going in that was going to take a whole lot of research on her part. And boy, she has risen to that challenge.
You read these books and you learn she has figured out battle tactics for ships. I didn't know any of these things before, but what she's put in there, it feels right. It makes sense. So she's done her
right.
homework.
It's set in a true historical period.
Mm-hmm.
She knows the politics of the various empires, the British, the Spanish, all this, and all that plays into this stew background for this character and supporting characters, right, which is absolutely amazing. Well, Rob has been the interior illustrator of this series from day one and done some truly, truly beautiful, amazing illustrations for it. And so very recently, after I'd had this talk with Nancy's own health isn't all that great either, all right? And pretty much her knees are very bad. Her eyesight is in poor shape. And she finds solace in writing, in her imagination, in her adventure. And we know this series is very dear to her. So I went back to Rob after I had that Skyping session with her and suggested the possibilities of maybe gifting her with 1 or 2 of his illustrations. Well, he did it. Rob's a magnanimous guy and generous to a fault. Really, you are, buddy. And a few days ago, Nancy got them in the mail. We didn't tell her they were coming, and she was
a while to get them in the mail.
Oh, but she was so touched by that. I mean, sincerely, posted it online, and she is framing those illustrations. They're going up in her office, and hey, it's a small way for us to say thank you for what she has given Airship 27.
Exactly. It's just a small token of our appreciation for this great series she's brought to us. So yeah, she deserves that and a lot more. So
yeah. So, hey, if you're one of those loyal airmen out there who've been listening to me and Rob talk about Jezebel Johnson, Pirate Queen, and you still haven't picked up issue 1, volume 1, Devil's Handmaid, what are you waiting for? I guarantee you, especially if you're going to be locked up indoors for the next month, do some reading, people.
And the Kindle versions of each chapter are only $4.99.
You can't go wrong. Okay, no. You really cannot go wrong. So, all right. Okay, what's next, amigo?
All right, let's see. Our newest title. As for our latest book release, that was Wu Dang #2, Exile of the Wanderer by Barbara Doran, in which she continues the exploits of her Chinese martial arts magician as he makes his way across California during the Gold Rush era. Gary Kato once again provides the interior illustrations, and yours truly turned in Ron calls it a humdinger of a cover. This is a great Asia Meets West series, and we hope you'll give it a try. As always, it's available at Amazon in both paperback and on Kindle.
Right. And it becomes the second series that Barbara has been doing for us in the last few years. Barbara is of Chinese heritage, and she knows that culture very well, having been brought up by, grandparents and great-grandparents. And so she infuses in her fiction elements of mythology, fantasy, history from China, Hong Kong, in that part of the mysterious East, if you will, all right? And it's really a lot of fun. It adds so much flavor. And then she mixes it with American history and American culture, as we, talking about Wu Dang taking place during the California Gold Rush. And as, if you know your history, there were thousands of Chinese that came over in that period in American history.
They built the big railroads.
Well, that's it. Right. Initially, they came over during the gold rush era and started building up the West Coast, California, Oregon, and Washington. But ultimately, when that, when the gold rush went pretty much bust, because there wasn't that much of it ever, all right, what did we do with these thousands of people? And suddenly the railroads were going, well, hey, it's cheap labor, bring them out here. And so suddenly, as Rob said, they built the American railroad system as we know it today. Hey, one of my favorite TV shows years ago growing up, and you know which one I want to refer to, David Carradine in Kung Fu. Right. Which was set against that period, all right? And he was this wandering martial artist traveling the American West, all right? So, again, we love nothing better at Airship 27 than to give you books that have various different ethnic backgrounds, histories, mythologies, and whatever.
Diversity.
Yeah, we want to entertain you, but at the same time, it doesn't hurt to learn a few new tricks along the way, right? I mean, I'm a sucker for history, and I know Rob is as well. So, yeah. Hey, thank you, Barbara. We love this stuff. Okay. What do we have coming up next? All right. Well, as we mentioned last episode, our next release should be the 4th anthology volume of Ravenwood, Stepson of Mystery. At this writing, Ed Cato has only one illustration left to finish up. And the amazing Adam Shaw has already turned in his truly wonderful cover that blew us both away when he submitted it. All right.
Beautiful cover.
Oh, yeah.
Just gorgeous.
We can tease you. Well, I had a composition idea. I passed it along to Rob. Rob did a little bit of a sketch. And then Adam got back to both of us and said, well, can I play with this? We said, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah.
And boy, what he turned in. We're going to tease you. When this comes out, you will see what we're talking about.
It's gorgeous.
Right?
It is gorgeous.
Oh, his use of colors.
Yeah. Just
constantly blows me away.
As we artists call it, painterly.
Yeah.
It is. If you know anything about art, he has a very painterly style, right. And it's what he did is just gorgeous. I can't wait for you guys to see this one. Really.
Okay. And so now, while this is all happening production-wise, Rob assembled the book and sent it off to our dear friend, writer, editor, Jamie Ramos, who volunteered to proofread it for us. All right. Now, once that book is all assembled and put together, the next book coming down the line should be Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, Volume 15. And already Rob has started doing illustrations for those. And hey, here's a peek at one of those. Oh, that's
not quite finished. I got some work to do in the background here, but
yeah. But I love the way you do Holmes and Watson. I really, really do. All right. And the cover for that one, as it turns out, has already been turned in by British artist Graham Hill. This being the second Sherlock Holmes cover he's done for us. And we couldn't be happier for us. So thank you, Graham. All right. The thing with this is we really hoped to have Ravenwood out by this episode. We'd hoped that we were going to tell you, okay, Wu Dang 2 is out, and so is Ravenwood. But alas, as the world turns, as they say in soap opera land, right? None of us could COVID-19 coming along and really, really throwing a monkey wrench into so many people's lives. All right. One in particular in a really important way. All right. We had mentioned past shows that Jamie Ramos suffers from failing kidneys. And it's that serious. He's been on dialysis for over a year, now close to 2 years. And hopefully, waiting to find somebody to donate a healthy kidney. And so we'd even mentioned, we've mentioned here online, and we put out the word on our Facebook pages, and so have many of Jamie's other friends as well. Well, just about a month ago, before any of this virus thing happened, Jamie got some good news from the doctors he works with, and that the dialysis place, the hospital. And what had happened was they were going to get him into one of these circle groups of life. All right. And if you don't understand how that works, it's basically some really smart surgeons worked this out a while back. I'd heard of it only a few years ago, but they had this like single track mind, Rob, where you've got a patient and you've got, DNA testing, blood testing, and whatever. It's got to be the same blood type, all this good stuff.
Yeah, got to be compatible.
You have to be compatible. And that was always the bugaboo, because you would think that family members would jump forward to help, and they would help, but they didn't have matches in the families.
It's always puzzling that a family member, someone who's, that has some of the same heritage you do, they don't match.
Right.
I don't know what the science is behind that, but apparently that's a thing. Your brother may not be able to give you his kidney. Okay. Because it doesn't match for some reason.
Right. So. And that was the real frustration with the medical world at that time, until, again, some unknown hero out there looking at files or whatever, one day got this eureka moment, all right, where he finally realized, well, what if one of the other patients who is, suffering from bad kidneys, all right, I've got one patient here, we can't find a match. I've got another patient here, we can't find a match. But what if in patient B's family, there's somebody who matches with patient A? If that's the case, is there somebody in patient A's family who matches with patient B? And they started doing this. Rob, I've heard this go as far as 4 patients in a circle.
So it's yeah, okay.
And
wow.
They do this.
It gets complicated.
They do the surgeries when they can in the same hospital. So they have 4 different operating table, and one healthy person donates a kidney to a suffering person. And then immediately that person's relative donates a kidney to another patient, and it's a circle. It's really the circle of life.
Wow.
People helping each other. So
that's pretty incredible.
It is. It's wonderful. It really is. And so basically Jamie and the doctors look like they could get him into one of these circles. It looked very promising, okay? Because they had some patients who they were starting to test look like they might be a match for Jamie. All right.
Well,
so, yeah, well, lo and behold, no sooner than Jamie tell several of us online, his friends, and we were deliriously happy, all right, considering it answered prayer, when the COVID-19 happened, and literally most surgeries have been shut down now, unless they're definitely, a life or death situation. But this kind of surgery has been put on hold because obviously, and I'm sure you all understand, hospitals and especially surgery rooms are very vulnerable to this kind of a virus. All right. It's endangering the patients. It's endangering the staff, the doctors, and everybody else.
Well,
all right.
For that matter, when you do a surgery, you have to have a machine, a ventilator.
Yeah.
You have to have a ventilator. And if you've got the people in the same room together, sometimes you can't hook up two people to one ventilator. You have to have 2 separate ones.
Right.
So quote unquote elective surgeries like this, take up a lot of space that's going to be needed for folks who are sick with the virus.
Right.
Plus, you know, you don't want to be in the middle of all that either, really.
No, right.
He's probably got an immune system that has been knocked down because of this kidney deal he's
I'm
got.
sure it has.
So yeah, he is not safe in that sort of situation. So it's a good thing out of a bad thing. We don't want him to get in there and get this virus and then not be able to fight it. Let's, stay at home and wait till this is all over.
Exactly.
Hopefully it'll be over pretty soon.
That's what we all pray for. That's the point I'm getting at, and you too. Hopefully, Jamie is easily one of the strongest characters that I know personally, as far as his endurance and his attitude. Okay, a lot of people I would have every right in the world to be totally depressed by all this, but Jamie's a fighter. He is really a fighter, and he hangs in there every single day. All right, and just knowing he's got a wife, a lovely child, a little boy, and so hey, Jamie. We're sorry for the setback, but this is all it is. It's a setback. We ain't going to stop praying for you. We know doggone well that the medical staff is going to be ready and willing once this whole stupid COVID thing is in the rearview mirror. All right.
Right.
So you hang in there, buddy. And hopefully, like, Robert suggested, proofreading this stuff for us. Jamie's actually working on a new novel now. So you know what? Put your mind on those creative things. Let's get them done. Yep. And that's how we do. We endure. Now, another reason why Ravenwood was slowed down, and this one is by no means bad, all right? And that's illustrator Ed Cato, who's in the middle of doing these really gorgeous illustrations. I can't wait for all of you to see them. One of his daughters had another baby. So he is a grandfather again. Yay. All right. Yeah. 2 days ago, Ed's newest granddaughter, her first name, middle name is Margaret Rose, was born April the 8th, weighing in at a tiny little 5 pounds. She's a tiny one. He posted a picture of her in her little swaddling clothes, in hospital. And she's a cutie. She's such a little angel. All right. So congratulations to Ed, his daughter, their family, everybody. God bless you all. And welcome to the world, Margaret Rose. We're very happy to have you join us. All right. So that was that. And then there are other things on the horizon. Let's not, we got more than 2 books out there. Let me tell you. We have writer Chuck Miller's newest Bay Phantom thriller, and artist Kevin Broden has returned to do the illustrations for this particular story. Mike Harris, on the other hand, is working on the illustrations for Gene Moyer's alternate world adventure, Zeppelins Over Africa. And just this past week, we got in 2 new Dan Fowler G-Man stories, one by Whit Howling and the other one by the ever-prolific Fred Adams Jr., meaning that volume is now complete. I've got 4 stories for it, folks. But of course, now comes the next step up. I got to find an artist for this, okay? So
start looking.
Oh, we start looking, okay? And you know what? A while back, and it's ironic the way these things do come about, because we ask for you loyal airmen to send us questions, and it really gets kind of spooky sometimes when the questions you ask are suddenly affected by what happens a couple of days, weeks later, right? And I think, as some of you will recall, Gene Moyes himself had written last episode that we didn't seem to be doing as many classic pulp characters as in the past. And Rob and I, explained that, these are tides. They shift all the time. We get writers who give us old classic stuff. We get writers who give us new pulp heroes and whatnot, all right? And no sooner than, like I said, Gene brings the topic up. So here we go, right? We've got the new Ravenwood anthology, classic pulp hero, all right? We've got a new Dan Fowler G-Man anthology, new pulp, all right? And this one, I thought of Gene immediately when I found out about it, but there's a new writer to Airship 27. The gentleman's name is John, spelled Jon. John Carter, all right, has just finished writing a full-length 60,000-word Black Bat novel. And he's in the final stages of his rewrite. Says I should have it by early next week, Rob. And I posted this on my newsletter, which I send out on a regular basis to all Airship 27 creators, writers, and artists. And who sees it is like it jumped off the page at them, but none other than our dear artist amigo from California, Clayton Hinkle, who drops me a letter the very next morning, goes, I am swamped with work, but I got to illustrate that Black Bat novel. I got to, please let me illustrate it. So here's the case where I'm not going to be looking for anybody. God bless Clayton. I got back. It's yours. It's yours. You have it. So by the time John sends me the manuscript, and I'm going to, get it in there and start reading it, editing it, and whatever. Once that's done, it's going to be a 1-2 step to send it off to Clayton and get illustrations in. So I'm thinking maybe by the end of summer we will have a Black Bat novel out there as well, which
cool.
I am so thrilled about. I am really happy about. So there you go, Gene. It's again, the tide is seeming to shift again towards the old classic pulp characters again. And how long that's going to last, we can't say. It'll probably go back to new characters later on or whatever. But as long as they all fit under that umbrella that we know of as fast-paced, colorful, exotic action, then that's pulp, and that's what we're going to keep giving you people.
Yep.
There you go.
It's what we do.
Yeah. And hey, buddy, we got another question this month, and it's a cocker. I'm going to let you read it.
Okay. The clouds have gone over the sun. So let me light. Oh, here we go. All right. A little more light on the subject here. Mark Allen Van wrote us this question. He says, the history of pulp has brought us a myriad of iconic, larger-than-life characters, many of whom are well known outside of the industry. The new pulp movement has also brought on a rogues gallery of outstanding characters that I feel could stand side by side with the established legends. Characters such as your own Brother Bones, Frank Derschel's The Wraith, and the entire Barry Reese universe, just to name a few. In the mighty Marvel fashion of the team-up, which new pulp character would you love to see team up or oppose which icon? Now, I said this is a two-parter. I would like to also know both a possible public domain and an improbable copyrighted pairing. Okay. Well, we've done something like that with Jim Anthony and Dylan in the Vril agenda, because Dylan is a new pulp character, and Jim Anthony was an old pulp character. And we did kind of a generational story with that, which was a really fun read, and I had a ball drawing it. Now, one that might be interesting is The Shadow and Brother Bones. As I call it, dueling floppy hats, trench coats, and shiny 45s. Think about it. Think how much fun that would be.
Oh, I would kill to write that. Are you kidding? I would totally kill to write that. I think, that plays to Mark's second half of his question, okay? Because he does mention the idea of copyrighted characters, all right? Yeah. Which is why those kind of team-ups are pretty much improbable, all right? For Rob and I, or Airship 27, to get the rights to the Shadow, forget it, guys, okay?
I got that change in my back pocket, right?
Right. That's not going to happen, okay? No, it's sad but true, all right? And you know what? There are other really great copyrighted characters out there that I would totally love to get my hands on and do things with, all right? But I love team-ups. I have since I was a kid. I'm a Marvel, kid, so is Rob, big time. So when I read your question, I'm thinking back on it about those that we've done, and Rob just hit you with easily one of the most popular, the Vril Agenda by Derek Ferguson and Joshua Reynolds. The way that actually came about, and let me explain, is Joshua Reynolds is a huge Jim Anthony fan. And so Joshua had done actually a full-length Jim Anthony novel for us, and then later did a Jim Anthony novella for us. All the while, of course, Derek's got his own character, Dylan, all right, and is doing great guns with that. So when they approached Rob and I with the idea of comparing an iconic old classic pulp character with a brand new pulp character. We loved it. We thought we got to run with this. Okay. Well, I've done that myself with Brother Bones. Okay. Because in the last volume, the last collection that we put out, which is a little over a year ago now, is Brother Bones, City of Lost Souls. All right. What I did was pair Brother Bones against a classic pulp villain, Dr. Satan. And I had Dr. Satan come to Cape Noir, all right, where he is going to reanimate an artificial man. All right. And Bones finds out about it and they cross paths. And so there you go. That's your typical, exactly what you're talking about, Mark. And you can find that book. It's not the first time I've worked with Dr. Satan. In fact, my entry into New Pulp began over 15 years ago when myself and New York writer Gordon Linsner brought Dr. Satan up against another classic pulp hero, the Moon Man, in a short novella we called The Hounds of Hell. And if you're intrigued by that, we still have that at Airship 27.
It's still up
Right.
at Amazon. Yeah.
So again, we're doing team ups. We like doing team ups. They're fun when they make sense to the story. All right. So what you might not know, and you mentioned Barry Reese. All right. Barry has written like a half dozen ongoing series. Well, several years ago, one of Barry's series is his Lazarus Gray series. All right. And Lazarus Gray is Barry's version of the Avenger. He's a guy who fights with a team. All right. And so after about a year and a half of doing Lazarus Gray collection books, one day I got an email from Barry saying, is there any chance I could use Brother Bones and have him cross paths with Lazarus Gray? It was a great idea, and I loved it. I gave him my blessing, and that appeared, I think, in the 5th volume of the Lazarus Gray collections. So again, Brother Bones, rears his skull-like head. All right, and then I think that the last big crossover, right, was, and it really inspired very much by the Vril Agenda in my regards, all right, is that editing and publishing the Vril Agenda, I love so much what Joshua and Derek had done that I wanted to get my hands on Jim Anthony. But at the same time, I'm doing the Captain Hazard series. And what's the connection? Well, if you know your pulp history, both of them were actually intended to be Doc Savage competition. They were created by different publishers because Doc Savage was so popular, all right? One group created the Jim Anthony, and the other group created Captain Hazard. Now, Anthony went on to a successful career in Super Detective magazine, was around for quite a while, whereas, as we know, Hazard was the one-shot wonder, and I've picked up that baton and been running with it over the last few years. And so I wondered what would happen if two Doc clones were to hook up, and what kind of adventure they could have, which resulted after a couple of years in Custer's Ghost, which is a book I'm really proud of. I had a blast writing it.
It was fun.
Yeah, and handling Jim Anthony. There were things in that book that I really wanted to do. There's a lot of American native folklore in it that plays a crucial part in the story. And I also identify who Jim Anthony's great grandfather is, and I'm not going to tell you who that is. Go out and buy the book.
Buy the book.
Go buy the book. You will, I hope, be pleasantly surprised.
Again, on Kindle for only $4.99. And there's more.
Yeah. So okay. So there you go, Mark. I would love to see more crossovers. I would love to see crossovers with new pulp characters and iconic, classic pulp characters. And whenever those kind of things are possible, we're all for it. We support it big time. We encourage our writers to give it a shot and see.
They're fun. That's what this thing is all about. This is all for fun, Yeah,
right. And that's it. It's as a writer, it becomes, like a kid in the candy store, because as I was plotting Custer's Ghost, I'm trying to be as true as I can to both characters, which are really larger than life heroes. All right. I mean, they're extraordinary men, and you can't imagine the joy I had the day I wrote the scene where they actually meet. And they do so in combat. All right. There's an actual gun battle going on.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And both of them being involved with it, fighting this evil gang and whatever. And by the time the smoke and the dust clears, Hazard and Anthony are standing there looking at each other and shake hands. And it's a moment as a writer that gives me so much fun, so much joy and satisfaction, all right, is to make that kind of thing happen and hopefully entertains our readers in the process, all right? So there you go. Thanks for the question, Mark. I really appreciate it. It was a really, really good question.
Yes.
And hey, you loyal airmen out there, send them in, please.
Questions.
Oh yeah, I was on the Pulp Factory Facebook page just the other day, Rob, and one of our newer members, a young gentleman, posted and started off his question something to the effect of, "Well, this might be a silly question," and it was a really good question and about Pulp history. And I basically got back and said, "Oh, no. There is no such thing as silly questions. There may be a lot of silly answers, but there's no, if you don't know something, ask. That's how we all learn. That's what that's about."
Yep.
All right. So now we've pretty much come to the end of the program, but one other little item.
Okay.
What else is going on in your particular life, my friend?
Well, and I'm not driving a bus. I'm not driving a bus. I worked for the University of Missouri on their shuttle service on the campus. Well, that's all shut down. And I also did part-time work for a local college, Columbia College, and they're shut down. They're doing both university and college are doing virtual classes, but there's no field trips. Nobody's going anywhere. So I'm not doing any of that. So, but I'm in a pretty good financial position. So this is not hurting me at all, but I'm keeping busy working on Twilight Grim, which is the book that I'm doing with R.A. Jones for Silverline Comics. And I'm alternating that with doing these illustrations for the Sherlock Holmes 15 book. And and I was going to retire in August anyway. I become eligible for Social Security and my full pension, and I was going to start doing this anyway. So this is kind of a precursor. It's kind of a dry run for that. Mm-hmm. I will also still be dry. I'll still drive occasionally for Columbia College because I don't want to give that up until I just can't drive anymore, because those are a lot of fun. But that's what I'm up to these days. And for the first time in several months, I actually cleaned up the studio. You can probably see behind me here how much more.
Quiet. Don't say that too loud. I don't want Valerie to hear that. Keep that down. Don't give her any ideas.
I still haven't vacuumed.
Okay.
But I straightened up, But you may be able to tell that by looking behind me. There's a few things I could still do, but they're behind me.
No, but look, I have to admit, it does look better than the last couple of shows.
I straightened it up pretty good. And that, if you'll remember, the theme song for our show is an old tune from the early 1900s. And I bought the sheet music for it. And if you'll look right straight behind me,
that's what that is. Yeah,
it's framed right behind me.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it was cool. It's very cool. So anyway, that's what I've been doing, is just kind of sheltering in place. So, but I am one of the lucky ones. I have not caught the disease, and I'm in a financial position where it's not affecting me that I have to stay home. Same thing with you, Ron. Since you're retired, you can just stay at home and not have to worry about that. You don't have to go out and work.
Right.
You've still got family in the house that's going out and working, I'm sure.
Right. Only because my son runs a landscaping business here in Fort Collins, and so basically the state government, the city government, all of them looked on that, because they called, they talked to City Hall and whatever. And the comeback to that was, well, look, as long as your employees are working outside,
Yes.
They're not big groups, and they send 1 or 2 guys on a job. Okay. And they don't go in the houses. They don't, deal with the customers face to face. All right. So, I mean, there's a part where, the city said, well, what? We don't want lawns mowed. We don't want irrigation done.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
These things
that stuff needs to get done.
It has to be maintained.
Right.
So knock on wood, we're in a period here. Fort Collins, because of its high elevation and our nearness to the sun, we get a little earlier spring than most people do. And the spring cleanup jobs are coming in. All right.
Good.
And I mean, by the dozen. So, knock on wood, our family's in good shape. And like you said, Valerie and I are retired. We have a nice retirement check and income, both of us. So, and this, I've been talking to a lot of our colleagues and creators in the last couple of weeks, and we joke about it. It's a little black comedy, but writers and artists work in our offices anyways. This isolation is something that is a norm for us. All right.
I mean, I reach over here. This is a work area right here, and I had
exactly
art that I'm working on. I've got a thing full of art supplies right here that I work with. So I'm right next to the drawing board.
The very monitor that I'm having this discussion with you is what I work off at least 5-6 hours a day, doing my editing, my writing, and whatever. Okay. And you know what? I want to put this out to all our loyal airmen out there. All right. My thing is, one of Rob's favorite sayings, and I've been quoting it a lot lately, it's the old lemonade. All right. If life gives you lemonade, make lemons, make lemonade. Right.
Yeah.
Well, we've had this technology for a while now. Right. And we've used it for all kinds of maybe frivolous things, maybe a little bit. But all of a sudden, it becomes a really crucial part of our society, i.e. teaching online, the college. My granddaughters had to be sent home. They can't stay in college, right? Like you said, all the colleges are shut down. The grade schools are shut down. So teachers are now finding themselves teaching online, all right?
Yeah. Well, my wife, Teresa, is an art teacher, and teaching art the way she's doing it is pretty tough. But she's getting it done. She's making assignments. She teaches kids from 3rd grade through 8th grade, and she gives them an assignment every week. Right. And there's some great stuff coming over the transom. They scan it in and send it to her. There's some great looking stuff coming from these kids. And it gives them something to do at home.
Totally. Okay. So that being the case, like I said, I'm working with several young artists from the Fort Collins group that I've known over the years and have been trying to mentor. And so now they're home, and aside from their homework, to keep their own creative juices going, they're doing comic stuff and digitally sending them to me for critiques, and I'm, working with them. I think Scott Ledzinski, one of the local writers here, right? Well, right. Scott over the last month and a half finished writing his first ever novel, and I had the pleasure and honor of being his editor on that. And it was a kind of thing where basically he would write a chapter and send me a chapter, and I would critique it, and we'd go on from the next chapter and the next chapter. And I found that he's a really good writer who takes direction extremely well as far as working with an editor, because somewheres in the story, as any new writer, his passion and enthusiasm got the best of him. And he was making, like illogical mistakes where he'd said something in chapter 2 that didn't jibe with what was happening in chapter 8. Okay. And just totally.
That's easy to do. That's very easy to do.
I do it myself. Writers do it, which is why you need a second reader or an editor or whatever.
Yep.
So last week, Scott actually finished the novel. It's done. Okay. As far as I said, there's nothing else I can tell you. I think it's a great book. It's one of a trilogy. And Rob, it's a fantasy.
Wow.
And we're going to publish it.
Cool.
Okay. And so Scott's beside himself. And watch how this goes. Watch how this goes, because you will die laughing about this. This is almost like the Jamie Ramos story. All right. Now, Scott's all excited. Airship 27 is going to publish his trilogy. All right. And I will be working as an editor closely with him for the next 2 books in the series. All right. Even though fantasy was not my thing, I got hooked into this and I love the experience. All right. So now I get an email from our good artist buddy, Jeff Butler. All right. Who is teaching art in Wisconsin. And guess what? He's at home having to teach.
Yeah.
Okay. And basically what's happened is it's a strange learning curve for him. He had to get new programs and whatever, and pretty much like what Teresa's having to deal with. The long and short of this is, if you'll recall, we had in our queue a rather unique novel that we'd hinted at last year by R.A. Jones, which was something very special and near to me, all right, and R.A. And Jeff was going to do the illustrations for it. He can't. He just can't. He is just so backed up with doing this online teaching now, all right, and whatever art commissions that he's getting himself to keep his wife and himself in, in food, supplies, and paying the bills. Suddenly something had to go. And so he writes me like within a day after the thing with Scott and says, well, I can't do it this year. Well, I've already had RA work waiting for almost a year. And so I'm pretty much decided that's it. I don't have an artist for RA's book. I'm going to have to give him the bad news and move on, try to find somebody else. And then the next day, Scott writes me and says, well, I know how you guys work. Have you found an artist yet? Because I met this young lady and she's really, really good. I'll send you some samples. So he sends me samples. And I look at them and they're not bad. The young lady can draw and she's making a living drawing now. Apparently she's got commissions. She's doing extremely well. Cool. She hit it off with Scott. So her and I started exchanging. She showed me samples. So her and I started talking, and somewhere's in the discussion, because she's all happy to, illustrate Scott's book, I mentioned that, well, her name is Clara. I said, Clara, you're going to be with us, right, for the trilogy? And the red flag went up. Scott hadn't told her it was a trilogy. They just, one of those things that, it just slipped his mind. So she got back to me and very apologetically said, there's just no way she could do 3 books for us. It was impossible. And I understood, right? I diplomatically, and I thanked her for her time. I was really sorry. And off she goes. I went back to Scott and I explained the situation to Scott, and he understood. He got it. He knows, all right, what a chore this is, all right, and how labor intensive it is.
It can be, yeah.
So I said, don't worry. Let's just concentrate on the books, all right? And I'll find you an artist. I will get an artist someday. Well, you know what, Rob? I wake up this morning and those divergent things happening in my life, I get to thinking, and I come in here and I have my coffee and I went, wait a minute. And I write Clara another letter. I said, Clara, I need to talk to you about an amazing book. And I started explaining about R.A. Jones's book, the concept, the plot. I said, it's a one-off. It's just one book. I need 9 illustrations. I said, do you think you might even be interested in something like this? 10 minutes later, that sounds fascinating. I won't commit yet, but send me the manuscript. So this is
lemonade.
Yeah. So
lemonade.
It sounds very good. Clara's going to sign on to do the RH.
Wow. Cool.
All right.
Really
and
cool.
we will get it out. Clara may never do another thing for us, but God bless her. I don't care. She's a sweetheart for even wanting to read the book and look at it. Yeah. All right. And so, like I said, thank you, Scott, for bringing it to us.
And who knows? She might get the bug and want to do it again, because it is a lot of fun.
To do illustrations.
Depending on what book you're working on, like for Sherlock Holmes, I've got to do research. If I got to draw a Victorian library, I can't go to the local library here and draw it. I have to find a picture of an old Victorian age library, and they look different. So yeah, sometimes they're very intensive in the research, but that's kind of part of the fun for me. I like doing that sort of thing. Right. But so it can be really labor intensive, but other times you just kind of breeze through it and you go, wow, that was kind of fun. I want to do that again. So,
hey,
you know what? We'll see. Yeah. She might. And then again, if she doesn't, that's fine too.
That's fine too. Yeah. I have some good vibes about this. And the thing with all this is, again, we're once again putting the word out. So any of you loyal airmen listening to the show, watching it, all right, see how this just happens. Like I just explained, all right. You may send us an artist who might not work out for this particular book that you're doing or whatever, but that artist might even know another artist who
Yep.
isn't doing anything right now or whatever.
Yep.
Okay.
Dominoes might fall.
Right. These kind of connections happen. And the thing I was going to start to say before, I went off on this track about these books. I
Got on a
digress.
tangent.
I digress, as Peter David used to say. The kicker is this. In the last week, Rob, in the last week and a half, I've spoken with Nancy Hansen by Skype for an hour. 2 days later, I talked to Chris Nye, the artist who did the rate illustrations for us. First time we ever met, an hour and a half on Skype. He lives near Charleston, South Carolina. First time we ever met like this. All right. The guy's one of us, buddy. Let me tell you, he grew up loving the same. We had a blast talking, enough so that we're hopefully going to make it a regular habit. Okay. I speak to my young protege in Fort Collins, Todd Jones, who lives a mile down the road. Right. And we Skype, we talk, we stay in touch. Okay. And yesterday on Facebook video, I saw Mike Belcher, our buddy from Connecticut.
Cool.
I zapped him there, and sure enough, suddenly we're on video on Facebook talking. All right. And he's home. His son, Aiden. All right. They closed his college. So Aiden's back home working offline and whatever. But what we're doing is continuing to keep the community alive, and even to a point of actually doing more of this than we ever did before. Rob, I've spoken to my 95-year-old mother twice in the last week and a half because her social director has a laptop with Skype. All right. Cool. They've closed down the home. They can't allow visitors anymore.
Can't go out or come, and nobody can come in.
No, they're pretty much quarantined in their individual rooms. All right.
Yep.
And I'm hearing, sad stories of a lot of these seniors, scared and wondering what's going on.
Yeah.
And why aren't my relatives coming to visit me? Why, blah, blah, blah. So this girl, Samantha, is the social director, and she's worked with all the patients and their families via email. And so she sets up now Skyping schedules. I spoke with my mom for 30 minutes earlier this week via Skype, looking at her like you're looking at me, clear as a bell. We had a blast. You could tell it buoyed her spirits considerably. And, by the time we hung up, I said, she's going to do this again next week, right, Ron? I said, yeah, we are, Mom. I'll talk to you next week. You have a great day. Yeah.
Why not?
Hey, look, I am putting this out there.
You're probably gonna communicate with her more because of this than you would if we hadn't had this thing.
Well, yeah, because I'm not a telephone guy. I tell people that I'm not a telephone guy.
Me either. I don't like the phone.
No, because you can't see who you're talking to. You don't get the impressions. You don't get the facial reactions of this or that. Whereas with Skyping and video, thank you, science, thank you, world. Okay, it's like Mom actually felt like I was in the room with her. You could tell she was so relaxed. All right.
Well, more or less, you are really.
Yeah.
Virtually.
So hey, look, any of you loyal airmen out there, okay? If you've ever had the thought of, geez, I'd like to do that, talk to Ron or Rob or whatever, give us a holler on Facebook. Drop us a line, all right? If we're not busy, if we can work something out, all right, and spend a few minutes saying hi, then we will, okay? This is just part of everybody doing their bit because we're all in this together, all right? And if there's anything we can do to help lighten your load simply by having a little video chat and visit, give us a call.
Who knows? So anyway,
it's bad joke time. Did you see the sneaky look on his face? Did you capture that? All right. Rob's ready. Go to it, buddy.
All right. Well, as like Ron did, I got two of them. But the second one I found really tickled me. So here we go. It was Grandpa Jones's 100th birthday, and he was still in perfect health. At his birthday party, he was asked how he managed to live so long and stay so fit. He explained, "I put my long life down to spending so much time outdoors. I've been in the open air day after day, rain or shine, for the last 75 years. How do you manage to keep up such a rigorous fitness regime?" they asked. "It's simple. When I married my wife 75 years ago, we both made a solemn pledge. We agreed that whenever we had a fight, whoever was proved wrong would go outside and take a long walk."
That one sneaks up on you. Oh yeah.
Oh, well,
Yeah, it does.
I live
It does.
that.
When you you and me both, buddy. You and me both. That's a gem. That's a gem. Okay.
Yeah, I liked it.
I guarantee you, if I were to repeat that to Val, her answer would be, "How true."
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, Lord in heaven.
So anyway,
All right. Yeah. Hey,
we have
Loyal
eaten up
Airman.
another hour of your life.
Which you're never gonna get back.
Back.
It's gone. It's gone. But hey, look, please be safe out there, okay?
Yes.
Don't take this lightly. I know Rob has and I have too. We've seen news features where people are just being absolutely silly, all right, and endangering themselves and their families, all right?
I mean, I understand this is really hard. It's making the economy is taking a hit, but this isn't forever.
No.
We want to save people's lives.
Yep.
Do your bit. Wear a mask. Wash your hands. The backs of my hands are so dry that I have to put, I didn't used to put lotion on my hands. Now I have to put lotion on them because I wash the out of them and they're dry. So, take care of yourself, take care of the people you're living with, and take care of everybody else by wearing a mask.
Right.
Okay.
That frustration Rob's talking about, you want it to end? You want it to come to a fast conclusion? That happens only when you do what you're supposed to do. If you're going to be silly and not play by the rules and endanger other people's lives, this is going to continue. Let me tell you, okay? You either do the smart thing and help us all get back on that track. All right?
It'll be we're trying to flatten the curve for the folks that work in the hospitals.
Yep.
Now it will make it a little longer, but we may have fewer people pass away, and it will. We aren't going to start killing the hospital people by working them to death.
No
so
way.
take care of yourself, take care of those around you. Wash your hands, and if you. Yeah, I know there are some people out there. I don't want to wear a mask. Okay, then keep at least 6 feet away from people, and when you cough, do it in your elbow.
Amen.
Cough or sneeze.
Hey, look!
Easy.
Our grandparents, our parents went through the Depression, went through several world wars. Okay, and all America is asking you to do right now is sit on your butt. Is that hard? Okay, if they could put their lives on the line, fight in the trenches, all right, stand in bread lines. All we're saying is sit on your butts and be smart. Thank you.
So anyway, okay, now that we have gotten you all in line here, folks, hopefully by the next time we speak, if this thing hasn't gone completely, it's bottomed out again, come back to normal, we'll be on the way there.
For sure. For sure.
God will. As my Muslim friends say, God willing. I
believe that. I totally believe that.
If we take care of each other and do what we need to do here, this will be over with before you know it.
Yeah.
And what I really like about this is it's making people, like you were talking, we're communicating. Strangely enough, we're stuck in our homes, but we're reaching out and communicating with people. Sometimes people we haven't talked to in a long time.
Yep.
Plus, there's one commercial, but my favorite channel is MeTV. It shows these old TV shows. And there's one commercial where this gal comes out and she says, maybe just doing nothing. Let's just sit and contemplate. And for once in our lives, just do nothing.
Yep.
We're all running around like chickens with their heads cut off.
Yeah. Amen. Right.
People with kids are running hither, thither, and yon with their kids. So all these activities. Maybe it's just time to sit down at the dinner table and play a board game.
There you go. I like it. I like it.
Those are fun. So anyway, but we could go on about this for another hour. So, but we've come to the end of an hour. So this is your Chief Engineer, Rob Davis, signing off.
And as ever, Captain Ron says, down ship.
Be safe. And there we go.